Welcome back, everyone, to the Unlock Your Inner Creator podcast. And I'm your host, Noilyn Mendoza. I'm so excited for the next guest for many reasons. I like to say that Adrienne Reyes is like my long lost relative for many reasons. She is also a Mendoza, but she's just an amazing individual that I've gotten to know over the last year. We have so much in common. She also is a fellow mama. She is a mama of three wonderful young women, and she has so many amazing passions, which you're going to hear about more today. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So, Adrienne, I always like to start these conversations asking my guests who have the biggest influences been in their lives. And really, for me, it's a way to ground us and to also center us. So what or who do you want to call into this space, and what energy do they bring?
So I like everything in threes. I have 3 children, 3 businesses, and so I'm going to call in 3 important people in my life. So the first one is my maternal grandmother, Lola Leone. She's a Mendoza, and she's an entrepreneur. She ran her own baking business back in the Philippines and was also a mother to 7 children. And then the next one is my paternal grandmother, Mama Ida, who was just a go-getter. She was so stylish. She also had 7 children as well, and just ruled with an iron fist. But just the way she provided and cared for them, I look up to her for that. And then lastly, growing up here in the US, the other 2 grandmothers were in Toronto and the Philippines. So Lola Course, or Akalau, was my godmother and also my great aunt. And she was the one that basically took care and took my parents under her wing when they immigrated here. And she was a school teacher, also a baker. She always made my birthday cakes. And she also worked at Blue Cross, which I ironically used to work for. And I loved her free spirit. She just kind of did whatever she wanted. She enjoyed good food. And so a lot of my childhood memories were over with her. So those are the 3 that I look up to and carry in my.
Yeah, and as you were describing these phenomenal women, I was like, oh, I see that trait in you and many of the things that you're interested. And, one resounding thing that I'm hearing from you that's kind of across the board is this idea around food. And food in many respects, in what you do, I know it's a huge part between Life Force Kitchen, and you are also a baker. But in some ways, you and I both share the same culture as well. Food in our communities, in our family, is a symbol of love. So I'm curious the impact that food has had on you, and maybe in the businesses that you have chosen to have as well.
So the creation of the baking business was actually a healing modality I did for myself. It was a creative outlet when I had a short sale in my first home. And that was like, I was so distraught after that because I felt like I failed my family. So my therapy was making cake pops. And so I was just doing it as a hobby and for fun. And then my friends were like, I think you should make this into a business. I'm like, okay. So I tried it and I just didn't know. It opened up a whole new, I guess, another part of me that I didn't know existed, and was that entrepreneurial spirit and just the creativity and just having an idea and making it come to fruition was just the lesson that I would carry on throughout the rest of my life. So not only is food enjoyable and it brings everyone together, it's healing for me. And then for Life Force Kitchen, it actually came about when during the pandemic, there was this organization called Feed the Streets, and they would provide food and necessities for the homeless. And I followed them on Instagram, and they had posted that they have the manpower, they have the volunteers, they didn't have the food. I'm always taken care of when it comes to food. It's always provided. I needed to share that with them. So I gathered my family together and we prepared meals and we would drop it off to Feed the Streets for them to hand out. And so that kind of sparked the idea of doing Life Force Kitchen as like our way of service and our way of giving back.
Yeah, I feel like in some sense, when I first started this podcast, it was around the pandemic, and very much to your point, it was an assessment. Like, we did a lot of reflection, like, who am I as a coach? Who am I as someone that is a consultant? to social impact organizations, right? Who am I as an energy healer? And I think many of us, like you, were thinking the world is in chaos right now. And I am not a first responder. And I think for many of us, we're also like, what can we do to help other people? And I love how Life Force Kitchen was really born from this idea of I want to give back based on what I do really well, which is I feed people really well. And to also think of it from a place of everybody is deserving of a really delicious meal, no matter what their circumstances. Talk to me a little bit more how, since then, how Life Force Kitchen is evolving and how maybe some things are different or have things shifted a little bit since we're, a few years out from the pandemic and things, quote unquote, are like normalizing, or maybe there's new things that are coming up as well.
So when Life Force Kitchen was developed, or when I was providing the food prior to Life Force Kitchen, we were just cooking to cook to bring that to the streets. And last year, it's kind of like I accelerated my learnings with higher teachings in kind of healing. And so I thought of fusing the two together, where Life Force Kitchen is prana infused food. So although they need nourishment and they need sustenance for their everyday, the great thing about Life Force Kitchen is we're infusing it with prana healing energy. So to heal any bodily ailments or mental well-being, like that's in the food. So not only are they enjoying something delicious, but there's something embedded in it that's just going to expand that healing even further.
Yeah. So for those that don't know what prana is, could you give a little bit of a background? What does that mean?
Yes. So prana is life force energy, and it's in everything. It's in the air, the water, fire, earth. And what pranic healing does, it's a no-touch healing modality, and it uses prana to heal the aura body. So in essence, when we're infusing the food with the prana, we're healing the recipient's aura body.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And also, it just kind of reminds me, and I'm sure that you've heard this too, like you can take a recipe and it could be the exact same recipe, but for some reason, right? Like if your grandma makes it, why does it taste different than when you make it? Because I think maybe that's the missing secret ingredient, right? It's the energy that the individual who's making it is bestowing upon the food. And that's maybe why it feels different. It tastes different. You experience it in a different way. It's so beautiful what you're doing. What are some of the other things that you are involved in? You said that you have 3 businesses and you love the number 3. So talk a little bit more about some of these other endeavors.
So the other one is Sacred House LA, and that is a business, pranic healing business that I have with my mother. We've gone through this pranic healing journey together, experiencing the classes, and it's just like I said, last year was kind of like an accelerated version of everything. And we had the opportunity, and that's how I met Noilyn, was the Business Development Accelerator. And that just took everything else to a whole nother level. And although Sacred House LA is still in its beginning stages, we're just offering healings to where it's needed. So every Sunday we host a Twin Hearts meditation, and it's just open to anyone and everyone that needs healing or needs meditation, and it's like our gift to the community. And then in addition to that, like I just completed my certification for clutter clearing, so that's where I'm also kind of migrating. So although Sacred House is in its new stages, like I'm really hunkering down on what healing is it that I want to provide to them.
And what is it about clutter healing that is super attractive to you?
One, being a hoarder is one. It's just the attachment to so many things, and just noticing that although it was good for the time being, the accumulation of it gets overwhelming, and then we're just stressed out. And it's not just stuff. It's emails, it's text messages, it's photos, it's thoughts, it's everything. So the clutter clearing, I feel like I'm at this point in my life where I'm really trying to find clarity, so that I can be laser focused on what is it that I'm here to do, what I want to accomplish without any distractions. And the little bit of clutter clearing that I'm doing, and even going through the certification program, it's unlocking so much more. And like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it's just, it feels like a weight's lifted off, and I'm just clear and set on what I'm going to do, even though the unknown is there, and I know that I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point. I think it's one of those things that a lot of people deal with, but they don't like to talk about, right? The clutter that's in our lives, and whether we like it or not, whether our house could be the most minimalist, but our lives are also cluttered in a lot of ways. And I think it's just really beautiful when you're able to tie in that energy piece. Because I think intuitively, even for those who are not energy healers, we kind of know the thickness that you feel when things are cluttered. And I remember when I was first going through coaching certifications, one of the things that they trained us on was when you first work with a client, do an exercise where you have them clear out their wallet or clean out their car or clean out a junk drawer. And I never really understood it until many years later. And the whole purpose of it was if they have this goal, they want something new in their life, they need to make space for it. And this is even before I became a energy healer. I was like, well, yeah, that is a really beautiful metaphor, because you're being weighed by these things like old receipts or like a full junk drawer of just like random stuff that you think that you're going to use later, right? And how are you able to bring in the new if you have these old things that are kind of tying you down? So I love how you've been able to incorporate decluttering into the work that you're doing. So I am really curious because these businesses seem quite distinct. How did we get here, Adrienne? Talk to me a little bit, like, what were the catalysts? You mentioned the pandemic, right? Around being able to feed people. As I'm thinking about you developing so many multi-passions, walk me through, were there certain pivotal moments in your life that have shaped you to decide, I'm going to actually create a business as opposed to I'm just going to be doing this for a hobby? What key and pivotal points that have led you to develop these businesses today?
So, like I had mentioned, the baking started because it was my therapy from losing my home. It was post-divorce where I had a business called Black Smoke, and so I would do Reiki healings, and then it was also a lot of creation. So I was making like intention candles, aura sprays, and crystal jewelry. And the way that was shifting, I was like, it feels kind of retail. Like everyone is doing this. Like I really need to provide something where it's like, it's unique. It's more of an experience than stuff. And I guess that's where the clutter clearing came up, right? Because it's just too much stuff. And the timing of it is impeccable. Like the synchronicity. Black Smoke came about because of the divorce. Sacred House was started even before whatever I was going to endure happened. So Sacred House was formed in December of last year, and it was preparing me because I was just recently let go from my corporate job with Anthem Blue Cross, and I've been there for 21 years.
Wow.
So that was something that was just such a big part of my career and life. And having Sacred House there was kind of like ready to lead me on to the next thing. So I don't know, like I just like having a lot on my plate. And there's so much, I guess, that I want to put out in the world. And there's so much that I just want to do. And just one business isn't enough.
So, Adrienne, I have to ask you, you had mentioned you were 20 years at Anthem Blue Cross. That is a really long time to be in a position. And I know that you're transitioning now. So I would love to just dig into that more. How are you now facing this new transition that is before you? And if you have any insight for those that may be in a similar situation of a really just tremendous change that they're in the thick of.
So going back to how we had mentioned clutter clearing, I asked for this. So it didn't come as a surprise. Like I wanted to remove having too much on my plate so I can focus on what I really needed to. And that happened to be this job. And it was like there's no hard feelings, no negative emotions. Like it's just part of the process, right? Embracing the change and looking forward to what's next. And during this transition, I just want ease. I'm still working to build the business and grow myself and continue to learn different things and try different things. But in the meantime, I'm also taking my time with it. Like I'm not in a rush. It's not a race. And I know everything that I'm doing is authentic, genuine, and it's not like a rush to jump to the next thing. Like I'm not going to jump into another job to make up for this. Like I'm really going to hone in on my gifts and pursue what I need.
Yeah. I really appreciate you bringing this idea around taking the time for reflection and deep awareness, because our tendency sometimes is that we don't want to sit in these negative feelings and we just want to get to the next thing. But really honoring this time of closure in a lot of ways, of endings. And I think there's such power in that if we can just sit in this in between space of something that's ending and a new beginning. That this is actually also something as well. This liminal space of the in between is also something that we need to honor in whatever way that is. And you've done this a few times. You've done a few closures. What advice would you give somebody that is maybe having a difficult time with an ending? How can they get through it?
I would say to embrace those feelings. Like that's something that I know is personal because it means something to you. And although the change is the end of one era and the beginning of another, it's I think having gratitude helps with that, and so that you can see it in a different light, where this is what I got out of it. This is what I learned. This is what I left behind, instead of like the woes and the sadness, which it's still there. But when you can kind of see above, and see it in a different way, I think that makes change somewhat easier.
Yeah, that we just have to honor what it was for us. Yeah, and I just think it's so inspiring because, oftentimes in the entrepreneurial space, you're really told to just laser focus. But the example that I'm getting from you is that it's actually okay to nurture so many of these different parts of yourself. And it's interesting as you were talking about how many of these things came about because of a shift in your identity, right? You had a short sell your house. That's like a shift in the identity of what does it mean? And then this baking business came about. Your Reiki business with Black Smoke came about because of your divorce. And now you're also being let go, and Sacred House, although it was formed, it's really the container that you're going to be walking into. There's something around transition for me that's coming up. I wonder if you can speak to a little bit about, and probably this is to the point of decluttering, right? You got to let go of something to bring something else in. Yeah, if you could speak to that a little bit more, because I'm getting a little bit of an aha as you are talking about the forming of these businesses, or to me, really, it's like even beyond passion projects, but something that you really feel is your purpose and things that you want to put out there in the world to help others.
You had mentioned before with clutter clearing, it's like to make way for the new, we have to remove the old. I just feel like this journey I'm on, it's just constant evolution. And everything served a purpose for that season. And it's still a part of me, even though Black Smoke isn't there, I still have the idea up. I still have some of the creations. And I know there's people that it really helped and resonated with. And I know they carry those things close to their heart too. So for the time and place that I was in my life, that is what I could offer. And I guess what I'm embracing is that nothing's permanent. Like it's okay to change. It's okay to move on to the next thing. It's okay to like dabble and experience and everything, because you don't know your greatest potential unless you do it. So in order for me to have different in my life, I have to change myself. And one of the biggest things, which thank you, Noilyn, for recommending, was entrepreneurship. So when I started following them and found the Toastmasters, that program helps to build Filipinas into being the most impactful, insightful, powerful public speakers. I never thought a year ago I would be in that position of working with this group to like better improve my public speaking skills. So I know in the future and later on down the line, there's something I need to be communicating to everybody. And so in this journey as of right now, that's something that I'm working on. So it's like this constant unraveling of different things and dabbling in different things. And it's like play. Like it's enjoyable, it's fun, it's scary, but it's also like I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah, I love it, right? Because for us to create things, it feels so different when, like you said, it's fun. And if we can come at it from a place of play and wonder and imagination, we just don't know what's possible. I think it's amazing. And the other thing that you said too, that's really landing for me is the ability to use your voice and to be seen. As folks that are out there creating something different and something new that we're not seeing right now, that is actually a muscle that has to be cultivated to be comfortable in your voice. I am curious beyond, the Toastmasters, because they are actually putting you in situation. If you could give advice to somebody to try to tap into that part of themselves, even if it's like slight, like just like a toe dip into the water, what advice would you give them to be comfortable in being able to use their voice, to be able to share their story?
So the biggest thing that's coming forth right now is to be your biggest fan, like champion yourself, because whatever it is that you are trying to create and put out there, no one else does it like you. So on Instagram and social media, we have this tendency to like see what everyone else is doing, and everyone starts becoming cookie cutters and everything starts looking the same. But it's like what you have to offer is so different. It's like, don't be afraid to step into that, because we need that.
Yeah, I love that, because it is so true, right? And this thing works because the algorithm is saying this, or this is like a tried and true thing, that sometimes you get lost in all of the external advice that you're also not working on. Like, well, what is it that makes you so different? What is it that makes you so unique? And maybe that's the thing that everyone is actually being attracted to, and you just need to own it.
I think it's important to really like listen to yourself and trust that. And like I said, you have to be your greatest fan, because what everyone is buying or investing into isn't really the thing. It's you. It's your essence.
Yeah, back to energy. What has surprised you in this journey of developing these businesses?
I guess ever since I was younger, I never fit the box of whatever that box was. Like for the area that I grew up in, for my culture, for everything, like I always stuck out, and I think that's why I was shy growing up. Like I just kind of wanted to look like everyone else, fit in like everyone else, but I was never that. And so creating these businesses, it's kind of like a form of expression. Like this is me, this is who I am. And whether you resonate with it or not, I'm here. If I trigger you, I'm still here. I'm in some way, shape, or form, like helping you.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that lately because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs that are very new, and how you were talking about, this is actually an expression. This business is actually a container for self-expression, and it could also be a container of self-realization or self-actualization. So what have these businesses taught you? What's the wisdom that has come through the strongest?
To listen and trust myself more. Even though it sounds like crazy and just out of this world, like I'm getting that message for a reason. So it's up to me on how I choose to put it out there, or if I don't, then I don't. But it's like, because I'm getting used to and comfortable doing it, the messages I get instantly, I'm like, okay, how can I make this happen? So it's, yeah, like building my own confidence in myself. This whole journey is about ourselves, right?
Yes.
It's crazy. Like I'm just having this aha moment. We have our clients that we're helping out, but in essence, the true client is ourselves. Like we are continuing to build ourselves, be better, and unlock different things about ourselves. So what an amazing journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're so right. I definitely feel you there, and I resonate so much. We are helping our clients, but they're just an extension. They're mirrors of who we are. And I've had this discussion with, other entrepreneurs too. A lot of times it's like the real client is us. At the end of the day, how are we growing and how are we deepening in the ways that are much more aligned to who we truly are? And that's what I'm really hearing from you as you're describing each of these businesses. If they are forms of self-expression, the more that you pour into that business, the more that you innovate and you create new things, It's deepening in the way that you express yourself as well and who you are. I feel in a lot of ways you're very courageous to just iterate and iterate and iterate through these different forms. And, there might be somebody listening that has an idea in their mind, but is a little bit scared. What advice would you give them so that they could feel empowered to start something? And maybe they're not having this aha like we are, like, our businesses are a form of self-expression, but there's something deep in them that wants to get out there and live out into the world. What would you tell them so that they can take the next step forward?
It doesn't have to be like a big drastic jump into it. It could be baby steps. It could be the little things of like you change your routine or you dabble in something different or you take this course or whatever it is that kind of like those little steps propel you. And like when you look back at the whole journey, it's like I was doing it. So I think we're in our heads a lot when we're thinking like, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't think I can. So yeah, there's that self-doubt and it's like we work to heal ourselves from that and move forward. But there's a saying that says, it's not the big things, it's the little things. It really is little.
Yeah, it reminds me of this thing that I saw on Instagram. It was like a ladder. So there was two pictures of ladders, right? And then the space between the rungs were different. There was one where it was like the rungs were really huge. So the person probably had to like do a pull up to get to the next rung. And then the other one were like tiny ones, like little tiny ones. And oftentimes when we're thinking about these huge changes, we're thinking of the one that has the rungs that are like huge and you have to do a pull up. And actually it isn't, as you said, it's just the little ones, like just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Yeah, so that we can get to our goal. We don't have to make it so complicated. What have been the best resources along the way? So you mentioned entrepreneurship. Have there been other things that have helped you grow as a business owner?
Yes. So one was the Business Development Accelerator through Pranic Healing. And that's where not only do you get the help to build your profession and have all the tools like marketing and things like that and social media, but it's also spiritualizing the business. So it's like healing any blocks that we have or going through and whatever self-doubt or blockages we have with prosperity, like we're building the physical part of the business as well as the spiritual. So that was like a game changer.
Yeah, I want to dig into this a little bit more. For a lot of people, they don't necessarily connect spirituality with running a business. So in your example, could you talk a little bit more about that? What does it mean to spiritualize your business for you personally?
Yeah. So with business, like for instance, let's use Life First Kitchen. It's one thing to do the physical labor of cooking, baking, packaging, delivering, handing it out and everything. But adding the spiritual side to it, it's like the energy that you have into all of it. Mm-hmm. So when I'm invoking, it's like I'm setting the intention. This is what I want to create today. This is the impact I want to have. And also giving reverence to the teachers and so forth. Because it's like we're constantly guided by angels and spirits. So energy around everything. It's like our demeanor while I'm cooking, the demeanor of like when we're handing it off to feed the streets. And it's like we're translating that to the recipient. So just being, I guess, mindfulness is spirituality with the business. It's just knowing what your intention is, what you're doing, and just knowing that you're guided and having that gratitude. I think gratitude is the biggest part of it. And if we don't have that, it's like, yeah, you can still put out a product or have a service, but you can get in much deeper tapping into the spiritual side.
Yeah. Thank you for uplifting gratitude. And you also said something around, we're not the only ones that are helping this business grow. Because oftentimes it could feel very lonely if you are, especially like you don't have a team yet, right? If you are a solopreneur and you're the one really getting everything up and running. And so to remember and to tap in that sometimes there's things that are bigger than us, the things that are greater than us that are also really rallying, for our success and to tap into that, whatever that is for other people, to tap into that, I think, deep understanding of trust and knowing that it's all going to work out, whether this business thrives or not. But this is kind of part of our process. This is part of our own personal growth and development. What is something that you want to tell people that are not used to change? What is a myth around it that you want to debunk?
The myth around it is, I think, whenever change happens, our minds have a tendency to go negative. Instead of changing the perspective and seeing that changes, maybe it's redirection. Maybe it's this is no longer aligned with me. There's another path opening up, and I'm trying to get you to see it, but you don't want to see it. Okay, we're going to make you see it. And, so it's like a lot of things that change for us, like whether it's divorce or losing a home or losing a job. Like at that moment, the emotions, it's heavy, it's sad, and you can grieve that. Your feelings are valid, but why it's happening to me, because there's something behind this change that's for you.
Yeah, it's like, what's the why behind this why to get you to that other place? Yeah, I just so appreciate your take on this because we can get stuck in that negativity. It's hard, right? Like you said, we have to honor that feeling for that moment and be with it and sit with it. And also know that there's another side to it. And we just don't know. It could be a course correction. And isn't life funny like that? Because oftentimes when there's a lesson we just haven't learned, it could be so strong when that lesson is like, I need you to really listen right now. I really need you to shift. And if we could be open to that, we don't know what's in front of us. And it could just be so much better. What are you curious about these days? What's inspiring you these days?
A lot of like my endeavors, everything is just, it's about my children. So I want to set the example and show them that whatever dreams that they have, like they can achieve it. So I try to include them, not just with business stuff, but just everything in life. I want them immersed in everything that I'm about and what I do. So if it's anything that inspires me, it's my girls.
Yeah. What do you think have been the biggest lessons that they've given you? I always say my children are my biggest teachers in a lot of ways. So what have your daughters taught you?
They post questions sometimes that could be like unfiltered. And it's kind of like, you really did say that to me. But it's them reflecting back what I need to hear about myself. And I'm glad that I'm in this space where I'm open to receiving that, whereas older generations of Filipinos are not so accustomed to having a younger generation tell you, okay, or call you out on some stuff. So I like that we have that strong relationship and communication where I can tell them what they need and they listen, and vice versa.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how you're open to receiving that as well, I think is huge. And in a lot of ways it is healing across generations. So my next question is, you have these three amazing businesses, all with really unique focuses. I am curious, what is these things that you're creating that are coming down the line? Any new exciting projects that you want to share?
New projects. So clutter clearing, as I just got the certification, I feel like Sacred House LA is transforming, where the clutter clearing and chronic healing is going to come together to help unblock and release any stagnancy that's keeping you from that job, that project, that relationship, the money, anything and everything. So it's all tied together, and I'm so excited to put that together. So finding that niche, right, of like when it comes to chronic healing, what is it? I can heal anything and everything, but and this is what entrepreneurship taught me, is like when you drill it down to a specific target audience, there's a greater impact, because it's like you're kind of not spread everywhere. You're just laser focused on that. So the clutter clearing is one. And the other thing for me is healing dogs. Like there's just something about the unconditional love they give to us, and the fun and the joy and the security and the friendship. And if I can return that back, not only by providing a home, but helping heal the dogs. With dogs, like there's actually a volunteer opportunity that we're doing with Pause for Life, which is another nonprofit organization. And they had an adoption event at the beach. So my girls and I were all trained to be volunteers, and working with dogs is one thing. That's our way of giving our service, but also on the business side, healing them.
So great. So Adrienne, tell us what is in the future in terms of offerings and services for your businesses that we can look forward to.
So one offering that we are doing monthly is I'm working in collaboration with my friend Wendy. She's the Curvy Chica Brujita, and she's a sound bath practitioner. And what she does is she plays the singing bowls and instruments, and at the same time, I'm providing pranic healing to everyone that comes to our sound baths.
Amazing. That sounds like an incredible offering. So please make sure to check that out. So where can our listeners connect with you?
So they can connect on Instagram, and it's at Sacred House LA. Our website is also www.sacredhousela.com. And then for Life Force Kitchen, our website is www.lifeforcekitchen.org. And then for Masky Pops by Adri, it's www.maskypopsbyadri.com.
Awesome. So my last question for you today, Adrienne, is what does being a creator mean to you?
You know, tying back to our conversation today, being a creator is self-expression. So given our God-given talents and sharing it with the world, that's what being a creator is, because you don't know who you're going to inspire, who you're going to touch, who you're going to heal, or who you're going to help propel to be the next creator.
Amazing. I love that. So in our act of self-expression, it's really a way for us to help others in this world. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Adrienne. I loved just talking with you and getting to know you more and just hearing really about your story. And for me, what's so inspiring is someone who's willing to face change head on and able to see the other side, that you never know what the course correction is going to give you, and it could be really great. So thank you so much for that example. Well, that's it, folks. Stay tuned for more creators in our future episodes. Until then, take care. Thanks for listening to this episode on the Unlock Your Inner Creator podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation and would like to help support this interview series, please make sure to subscribe and tune in to the next episode and share it with others. And remember, dream big, dream bold, and take brave steps. I'll see you next time.